Hello everybody. Today we are going to learn about brachial plexus. If you say about the brachial plexus, this is the plexus which is important for the innervation of the upper limb. And if you consider the brachial plexus, it is made up of 5 major components which are in orderly named as roots, trunks, divisions, cords and finally branches. And to remember the components of the brachial plexus, you can use the mnemonic reach to drink cold beer. And here you can see the first letter of every word stands for its respective components of this brachial plexus. If you consider the cross section of a spinal cord, it is made up of a dorsal horn and an anterior horn. Dorsal horn is the site where the dorsal root ends in the spinal cord. It has its dorsal root ganglion. And anterior horn is the site from where the motor root starts from. And the anterior root and the dorsal root combines together to form the spinal nerve. And this spinal nerve, after emerging through the intervertebral foramen, it's divided into its 2 major divisions, which is the posterior ramus and the anterior ramus. This posterior ramus is responsible for the supply of the back musculature, and this anterior ramus is the one which is important to form this brachial plexus. If you consider the brachial plexus, the anterior rami which are involved to form the brachial plexus are from the spinal nerve C5 to T1. And if we draw the brachial plexus, starting from the anterior rami C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. And when we consider the brachial plexus, these anterior rami of these respective spinal nerves are considered as the roots of the brachial plexus. And you should remember these roots lies in the scalene triangle of the neck. These roots combine together to give rise to 3 trunks. And here this roots from C5 and C6 combine together to give the upper trunk. And here the C7 anterior rami or else the root continue itself as the middle trunk. And finally these anterior rami or the roots from C8 and T1 combines together to give rise to the lower trunk. And you should remember these trunks lies in the posterior triangle of the neck. And then these trunks, each trunk divides into its anterior division and to a posterior division, which gets combined together to give rise to 3 cords. If you consider the upper trunk, the anterior division from the upper trunk and anterior division from the middle trunk combine together to give the lateral cord. And the posterior division of all these trunks, posterior division from the upper trunk, posterior division from the middle trunk and the posterior division of the lower trunk combine together to form the posterior cord. And finally, the anterior division of the lower trunk itself runs as the medial cord of the brachial plexus. And finally, and you must remember that these divisions lies behind clavicle, and these cords are arranged around the second part of axillary artery, and it is named according to the relation it has with the axillary artery. Now we have seen how the roots, trunks, divisions and the cords are formed, and finally we should see what are the branches given from these respective components. If we consider the branches, there is a way to remember how many branches arises from each component. And if we consider about the roots, there are altogether 3 branches given from the roots. And if we consider the trunks, no branches arises from the middle trunk and the lower trunk, but a single branch arises from the upper trunk. And you must remember that no divisions give rise to any branches. And finally, if you consider the branches from the chords, if you consider the lateral chord give rise to 3 branches. Posterior chord give rise to 5 branches, and finally the medial chord as well give rise to 5 branches. And if we draw the branches according to these numbers, first of all, if we consider branches from the roots, the first nerve to emerge is from the roots C5 and C6. It is called as dorsal scapula. Then the second branch is from C5, C6, and finally from C7 as well. It is called the long thoracic nerve. And finally, the nerve from the root is the nerve to subclavius, which arises from the C5 and C6 root just before the arisement of the upper trunk, nerve to subclavius. So these are the branches given from these are the 3 branches given from the root. And if we consider the branch from the upper trunk, it is the suprascapular. As I said earlier, no branches are given from this division. And finally, we should see the branches given from each course. And before moving into the branches given by this course, we should remember, although many branches are given from these course, there are 5 terminal branches which are important for the nerve supply of this upper extremity. To remember those terminal branches, we can use the mnemonic MAMU. And here this first M stands for muscular cutaneous, and second A stands for axillary nerve, then R stands for radial nerve, then M stands for median nerve, and U stands for ulnar nerve. These are the 5 terminal branches given from this brachial plexus, and you can use this mnemonic as well to remember it as MAMU. And if we go into the branches given from each course, first of all, if we consider a lateral course, there are 3 branches given from it. First, it is lateral pectoral nerve. Then this terminal branch, which is muscular cutaneous, and finally the lateral root of median nerve. Those are the 3 branches given from the lateral cord. Then, if we consider the posterior cord, there are 5 branches given from it. So, if you see the first upper subscapular, then lower subscapular, then nerve to latissimus dorsi, or else it is also referred as thoracodorsal. Then the 2 final terminal branches, which are, one is axillary nerve, then the other one is the radial nerve. So the 5 branches are upper subscapular, lower subscapular, nerve to latissimus dorsi, axillary nerve, then finally the radial nerve. And if we consider the branches given from the medial cord, there are 5 branches. Those are medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, medial pectoral nerve, and then medial root of median nerve, which combines with the lateral root to form the median nerve, and finally its continuation, the ulnar nerve. As I said earlier, there are branches given from the cords. From the lateral cord, there are 3 branches given. From the posterior cord, there are 5 branches given. and also from the medial cord there are 5 branches given. And to remember this 13 branches, there is a mnemonic, and you can use that mnemonic to remember these branches. And first, if we consider the branches from the lateral cord, there are 3 branches, and we can use the mnemonic called LMN. Here, the first L stands for lateral pectoral. This M stands for musculocutaneous. This second L stands for lateral root of median nerve. And second, if we consider branches from the posterior cord, there are 5 branches. And to remember these 5 branches, you can use the mnemonic called ulnar. Here, this U stands for upper subscapular, L stands for lower subscapular, N stands for nerve to latissimus dorsi, A stands for axillary nerve. Then finally, this R stands for radial nerve. And finally, to remember the branches given from the medial cord, there are 5 branches given, and you can use the mnemonic M for U. There are 4 M's and finally a U. This M stands for medial cutaneous nerve of arm. Then second M stands for medial cutaneous nerve of forearm. Then medial pectoral. Then medial root of median nerve. And finally, this U stands for its terminal branch, which is called the ulnar nerve. And you can use this easy mnemonics to remember the branches from the respective codes: LML, ulnar, and M for U. And finally, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe our video.